Boom.
Yay, recording.
Recording.
I got all dressed up for the occasion.
Good.
Hockey's back tomorrow.
Hockey.
Which does require a lot of forgiveness, because sometimes you play on one team and you beat somebody up on another team, and then you get traded and you have to go play with that person.
Yes.
And you have to forgive them.
This is true.
Boom.
This is true.
Right into the topic for you.
Right into it. I'm Zube.
I'm Chelsea.
We're going to be talking today on Earthling's chat about forgiveness.
Forgiveness. One of the most complicated, I think, probably varied emotions and situations that humans go through. Would be my argument. Forgiveness is really hard for people like me.
I concur.
So my question is, because Taylor Swift, I'm a Swiftie. She went through that whole thing, that whole debacle, right, many years ago. And she did her big interview. I think it was on like Sunday morning or something. And she said, I was told my whole life that in order to move on, you have to forgive and forget. And her quote, I'm not directly quoting, was essentially, no, you don't. You don't have to forgive and you don't have to forget, and you can move on. And that's been playing on my mind because I think there's almost different types of forgiveness, kind of like there's different types of love. Like there's a different type of forgiveness for someone accidentally, hitting you with a shopping cart versus someone, say, betraying you in a more intense way, like cheating or whatever it is. I mean, those are two different types of emotions. And then there's also forgiving somebody who's no longer in your life for your own personal peace. And then there's a type of forgiveness that you have to come by because this person is in your life, whether you like it or not. So maybe in your situation, talking about, okay, my ex-husband, right? He has to be in my life because I've got these kids with him, versus maybe a friend that you had a falling out with that you don't talk to anymore.
Yeah. It was funny because I was like, yeah, forgiveness, that's cool. And then I was just sitting here and I'm like, my legs are crossed and my arms are crossed. Everything is crossed.
Yeah, so, it's heavy.
It is. I mean, and like to what Taylor Swift said, which I'd never heard that story before. I do believe that there are areas where you can move on. And I think in large part, that's kind of my modus operandi. So, and it's about forgiving ourselves. Okay, so this is going to get like a little spiritual kind of woo out there. I can't get a sorry from other people to make my life better. I can't make my being okay contingent upon someone else repenting. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so I'm at the point where I'm like, other people can't get that from me either. That's on them, because I'm at a forgiveness standoff with certain people in my world, right? Because I'm not going to apologize. And if I'm not going to apologize, then I'm not going to expect anybody else to apologize. I don't know. But you're right. There are the different types. Okay, you go, because I'm like tripping over this one a little bit.
Well, so it's kind of two things. One, you were a big part of my philosophy on specifically saying sorry. And I think your philosophy on saying sorry falls in line a lot with my dad and my stepmom, who perhaps against better judgment taught me, you don't say sorry unless you mean it. So there were a lot of instances back in like grade school, let's say, where it was like, write your apology note and you won't be in trouble. And I'm like, okay, but I'm not sorry. And then I would get kind of labeled insolent or, you know, obnoxious or whatever. And it was like, no, I'm not sorry. I'm not going to say that, because to me, sorry is kind of like a promise, where if you break that, then that's further breaking trust. And sorry is, first of all, it's really vulnerable, which kind of brings me to how my therapist, shout out to Dr. Armstrong, has been framing forgiveness for me recently, which is a part of boundaries, right? So the thing with forgiveness is, I can say sorry to you,
Mm-hmm.
and you can decide what to do with that. You can decide, no, I don't accept your apology. But something you can't do is change my apology, right? You can't say, no, I don't think you're being sincere unless you do X, Y, and Z, because then I'm no longer in a place of authenticity of myself, right? And so then that apology is no longer accurate, and therefore forgiveness can't be given. My therapist brought up this really interesting scenario she was talking about between her friend and her husband, that she witnessed an interaction with them, and she kind of broke it down for me. And essentially it broke down to, you cannot grovel in an apology. So you can't say, oh, please forgive me, I'll do anything, da da da, because that's not being authentic, no matter how tempting that might be, especially when we screw up big time.
Right.
And you cannot put a value judgment on an apology. You cannot accept it. You can say, no, I'm going to continue to be mad. But when you come from a place of real, authentic, settled self, then you're offering it. And you have now re-entered authenticity with yourself by apologizing, if that's what you want to do. Whereas the person accepting it can enter authenticity by saying, yes, I see this in you, and we can move forward. Or they can be authentic and say, no, my boundary was crossed too much, and that was too much, and you know, we're no longer friends, or whatever, maybe. But I really liked, she's been working really hard on being intentionally selfish, the way I think is selfish, but it's not. It's about taking care of yourself first. Whether you deserve whether you need an apology, or whether you're giving an apology, it's all about returning to an authentic self.
I like that. I like that. And so that got me thinking about in AA, we give amends, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when you give an amends, we don't say sorry. Like, it's actually like not a sorry, but it's like you say, what can I do? What actions can I take to make up for this? Or if I do this and this and this and this, but it can be rejected. The thing about all of this is that it's really about me.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? It's really, am I okay with where I have left this off? And by giving an amends, it frees us to kind of like release some sort of contract we have to just being a sorry, pathetic alcoholic or drug addict or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And forgiving ourselves. So that's right. Authenticity. I like that. And I think, I think that's kind of where I come from, like where I'm coming from, because I will apologize in some situations. But when I say, I don't expect, there was a meme that went around and it was like, if you've wronged me, you're forgiven. If I've wronged you, I'm sorry. You know what I mean? Where it's just like, I'm just sick of like all these strings that people put on each other. And I think that like apologizing and we're talking about apologizing now, but we're supposed to be talking about forgiveness. But forgive, I know it's all kind of but yeah, I guess it's mostly but we create these strings with people, you know what I mean? And so forgiveness, all is forgiven.
Right.
Yeah.
And then really what the hardest part about forgiveness, though, is when you don't get that apology, right? Like, those are the hardest ones.
Yes.
When you know you deserve an apology, but you don't get one, what do you do? How do you move on? Because I honestly think that in those situations when you're not getting the apology that you deserve, that by some miracle you all of a sudden do get one, there's so much resentment built up that you're like, nah, screw that. Like, no. Like, is it really ever going to be good enough? So it's really about finding that piece about what happened, whether somebody wronged you or a situation was really messed up or whatever, and being like, hey, and this is the difference between responding and reacting too, right? Which took me years to understand the difference of.
Right.
But you can be like, that was really messed up. That wasn't okay, whether that situation, person, whatever. And I'm going to choose to either make that part of my identity about how messed up I was treated, or I'm going to decide that I'm more powerful than this. I deserve better than this, and I'm going to move forward. So maybe that's not forgiveness, but maybe it is.
Well, and here's another funny thing as well is it forgiveness if you're forgiving someone for something they didn't think they did wrong? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Huh. Or is that ego? You know what I mean? Like, oh, well, I forgive you.
Right. Like, I think it's all about, I mean, it's literally, life is just about finding that inner peace, right? Whatever that is for you. And it's so tough for me because I very much used to see things in black and white, where it's like, either you're in my life or you're not, because I couldn't hold boundaries beyond that. It had to be all or nothing. I could not hold and be steady and confident in allowing a person or a situation to happen on my own terms, because they would immediately crumble, right? So that's what I'm working on, is finding the boundary to incorporate previously harmful people in my life in a new way on my own terms. And maybe that's the healing process. I mean, maybe you have to do that in order to get that real energetic release of forgiveness. That's really what it is, right? When you feel forgiven, or when you are forgiven, like, you just like, right? You stop carrying it.
Yes.
So what does it take to stop carrying it?
Okay, so here, all right. I just kind of felt what this, because there are some people that if I went up and said, you know what, I forgive you, they'd be like, fuck you, I didn't do anything wrong. You know what I mean? However, when I'm over here in the energy of not forgiving them, I believe, like, have you read the Four Agreements or no?
Oh, yeah.
Words, I think words are daggers. And I think that the energetic feeling of like, you wronged me, sends out its own kind. So like, if anything, it's just an energetic, it's like drawing, it's like forgiving a situation or some, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It does. It's real heavy, because, it's really easy to forget about that soccer mom that ran over your toe at the grocery store during rush hour. But it's a lot harder to think about your parent who was maybe not there for you, or was distant, or was harmful. And what can you do to heal yourself? And then also, like, for me, the biggest transformation has been seeing the hurt in other people, like seeing the hurt that caused the hurt. Because nobody wakes up one day and decides to do heroin. Nobody wakes up one day and randomly decides to drink a fifth of vodka. And nobody wakes up one day and just decides to start being a shitty parent. Like, that's not how it works. There's a series of events. And while the behavior is not acceptable, like, seeing how that person got there really opens this well of empathy and understanding, right? Because we've all been hurt. We've all made mistakes. We've all coped in ways that maybe were ultimately not in our highest good, just to get through the day. I know this feels off topic, but it's not. But it's like, this is so, I can't decide if we're too sober or not sober enough for this. I don't know.
I've only been too sober for about 3 years now.
Yeah, no, me too. It's just,
because we're like onto something though. Like, we're like, it makes me think of sometimes you'll hear like karma is only, you only have karma if you agree to it. Like you can really release yourself of all your karma. It's just that
Yeah.
that's way fucking harder than it sounds.
Yeah.
Like
Well, there's also this element too of what things are difficult to forgive because we're judging in ourselves. They say the things we judge in other people are what we're actually judging in ourselves, and I found that to be so true. So I think it really comes down to like, if I need to, let's just get real blunt about it, forgive my mother for not loving me, then I need to love myself.
boom.
And that's hard.
That is hard. That is hard.
And that's the other thing my therapist talks about, is about taking what's responsibility. Like, what am I responsible for in my relationship with my mother, right? I'm responsible for just being myself. She is responsible for loving me and seeing me and treating me like an individual. Now, if she can't do that, that's not my fault or my problem. And I need to release responsibility to her in order to love myself, because then my self-value and my self-worth is not tied to if my mother loved me or treated me like a child, but rather just because I am intrinsically deserving of love.
Yeah.
So that's when I can forgive her for being a fallible human, because I am experiencing the love that I need to offer forgiveness.
Okay. Yeah, I get it. And okay, so Eckhart Tolle, you know who that is? Do you?
Yeah, the philosopher, right?
Yeah, he's like,
Poet.
yeah, Eckhart Tolle. I always say Tolle, but it might be Tolle. I don't know. But anyways, he wrote The Power of Now or whatever. But
Mhm.
he talks about consciousness, and so like when you're awake, he's it, somebody asked him like, well, okay, so a murderer in prison, and I wish I could remember what talk it was, but he was like, this is really hard to understand and to get your head around it. But when someone is acting unconsciously, they're acting out of a program. Like,
Mhm.
I was born into this family and this, like, it's all like, it's none of this function. It's all this, and this can get really screwed up, you know? And so I mean, yeah. And that comes to the forgiving someone for being a fallible human, because we're all fallible humans. You know what I
To
mean?
some extent, if you're dealing with somebody that like you said is so asleep and so entrenched in patterns that maybe they even have nothing to do with, that they can't see it, that's kind of like being mad at a toddler for not knowing how to drive, right? Like,
Yes.
what is a toddler's business driving? Like, of course, and again, not to excuse an adult's opportunity and conscious choices, but at the same time, it's like, you're not an adult, you're not awake, you don't, like, of course you're going to continue behaving this way, or behave this way in general, because you just don't get it. So I always struggle with this. That's not a free pass, but it is an explanation.
Exactly. It's not a free pass. I mean, and here's the thing, like, I always think of it like this, but if we're unaware, or if someone is unaware of like what the ego is at all, the ego mind, um, we really are like a bunch of 2-year-olds, but just more not even if it's not a dangerous situation, just more dangerous because we learn much more manipulative ways to use our toddler wants.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? um we're
I
just
think really,
better
at
at
the end
getting
of the
what we
day,
want.
it's all about survival, right? All we're trying to do is survive.
Yeah.
That's all humans do. That's all the lizard brain does. And if you're lucky enough to have found a way to move into thriving and to move into something deeper, then I mean, that's amazing. But at the end of the day, all we're doing is surviving. And we talk a lot about, there's a lot in our pop culture of doomsday apocalypse stuff. And that's now, man. I mean, every day is still a fight to survive. So if you can move beyond that, I mean, kudos to you. But just being alive is still.
Yeah.
Being a human is so hard. I had this moment.
It is hard.
I had this moment driving the other day. Taylor Swift was on, new Evermore album. Yes, I'm a full Swiftie. Go listen to it. It's fire. And I go to work at about between 6 and 7 a.m. So I'm always catching the sunrise. And everything was all frosted here in Boulder. And so everything was all white and quiet. And then all of a sudden I entered this random crazy fog storm that we get sometimes. For about 2 miles, you couldn't even see the red lights in front of you, like of the car right in front of you. And it was this most like peaceful, ephemeral, like I've been temporarily moved into the heavens moment.
Right.
And I was like,
Singing.
I might crash my car right now because I can't see anything, but like it's all good. Like it's fine.
When
And
was this?
2 days ago, 2 mornings ago.
Oh, okay.
The 10th. Yeah, the 10th, January 10th.
Because that happened to me yesterday when I was driving through Colorado. I hit a bunch of fog.
Yeah, but there's just this weird, it was one of the very few and one of the very first times, again, we're a little bit off topic here, but that I was totally comfortable in not knowing, totally comfortable in being in that moment where I was like, I don't know if I'm ever going to talk to my mom again. I don't know if I'm going to make it to work alive. I don't know if I'm going to complete my master's degree. But it's all good, man. It's all good.
I love those moments.
Yeah, I mean, I've never done really like fun drugs, like the hardcore drugs.
Mm-hmm.
But I imagine that might be what, I don't know.
Yeah.
What drug would that be?
That would probably be heroin, which I've not done. Or
Not done heroin. I've done legal heroin.
really?
Yeah, so I'm allergic to opioids, so I don't have the same reaction to them as everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
But I've done over 100 milligrams of Dilaudid in one day.
Okay.
Which is about 10 times the normal dose that you're supposed to take.
That's a lot of Dilaudid.
It's a lot of Dilaudid, which is essentially heroin. It's legal heroin.
Right.
And I did not feel that at peace. So I'll take the sober high over the drug high.
Yeah. Well, it's I tell people I don't have a death wish, right? But I also don't have a life wish. Now, some people would think this is really sad, but I'm not living the life that my ego wants to live. You know what I mean? I don't have what I want. You know what I mean? And there's actually like I really want to be in my kids' lives, you know. So that's and that's painful, and I work through it. But at the same time, sometimes I'll be like, I mean, if my job here is done, like,
Yeah.
take me at any time.
I also really believe that we really do go when it's time. And I know how painful that can be to hear for people who lost a child or a spouse suddenly, or family member, anybody that you lose at any, I mean, none of us are ever like happy when somebody dies, but I really, really do think when it is our time, it's just our time.
I have a feeling, I get a sense of that too. I really do. And plus we don't really go. We're just somewhere
Right.
where we can't, see.
Yeah.
And I think it would be hard outside of the context of I feel comforted by that. You know what I mean? And so like I find comfort in getting through my entire life right now, knowing that someday there's an other side and I'll get it. Like I'll understand why it was like this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, I do think that how did we get here from forgiveness? I mean,
Well,
whatever.
I mean, here's the thing again, talking about forgiveness and talking about, talking to imaginary friends and dead people. What I've discovered with my maternal grandmother is my only evidence for one, that things exist after we pass on. And two, I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I've completely moved on and forgiven her and we're best buds, but my relationship with her now dead is so much better than it was with her alive.
Yeah.
There's that element of family lineage healing that has to happen. And even though she's no longer on earth, that this healing has to happen. This exchange has to happen in order for, whatever to fulfill what I'm supposed to do here.
Well, when you heal anything in you, it goes back through your family line and, forward through your family line. So yeah.
I would have said I was the type of person that said, if she was on fire, I wouldn't waste the pee to put her out, kind of thing, and which is a horrible thing to say, but I've got my reasons. But now it's like, I'll even hug her when we chat now. And like, that's an intentional, really? Like authentic desire.
Yeah.
And so to go from that, that's real, man. That's real.
That is real. That is real.
Forgiveness can happen at any time. It doesn't, the person doesn't have to be alive. So I think maybe Taylor Swift is right in that, where you don't have to forget to move on.
Right.
I think it's always fair to understand that somebody has the capacity to hurt you. And
I think, oh, go ahead.
No, I was just talking about, I was cheated on and I decided to stay. And I used to say that if you cheat on me, you're 100% done, we're over. I was trapped in this relationship, but I was cheated on, and I stayed not because I felt like my boundaries were now being understood and respected, but because I was stuck. But you can, if you come to a point where your boundaries are now understood and respected, then you can repair that, right? But that didn't happen. But anyway.
But anyway, well, and so, okay. So I think maybe with the conversation, there are two pieces. So the one is me on the inside. How do I forgive? And that's probably more along, this may have to be like a part two at some point, because I was thinking of like the act of forgiveness. And I think that forgiveness is like an internal deal. I think if you're involved in something that you're forgiving someone for, like that part of the forgiveness, like if you're not getting an apology, you know what I mean? If this is something that you're working on internally, I think in order for that process to be authentic, it has to be by and large an internal one. Does that?
Yeah.
Because like if you did months worth of work and then you walked up to the person and said, oh, by the way, I forgave you, like that negates it, don't you think?
Yeah. Well, certainly, because like you going back to like what you said, that words are kind of like daggers, right?
Yeah.
So if you're telling somebody I forgive you, that's potentially coming from the ego place of you did something wrong and I'm better than you because I forgave you.
Yes.
Now we're cool because I'm above you.
Because I'm such a great human.
Right. Because I'm so much more ascended than you. And I get that, rather than just being like, I think really forgiveness comes down to that like complete place of being just like chill, like just really relaxed about the whole situation. And like, yeah, you done fucked up my life, man, but now I got back control of it. I figured out what was wrong with me that allowed you to fuck up my life, so you can't do that anymore. And you're a fallible human, I'm a fallible human, but I'm now back in control of my life. My boundaries are so strong that you can't impact that. Therefore, you can be part of my life because I am the master of my own ship.
The master. Yes, because it's like personal responsibility, you know what I mean, for our own feelings. And and like when I was just, that's so weird, I was just talking to somebody about this. I think it was in a reading or something, but it's like when we're children, we don't understand the, what was going on. But when we get to be older, and I heard this in AA a lot too, it's like once you get to an adult, then it is your responsibility how you respond to something,
We're taught how to respond as a kid. And really, I mean,
Yeah.
my goal, if I ever am so lucky enough to have kiddos, it's just to teach emotional regulation, right? You can't make a rational decision when you're, up here. But if I can teach you how to come back down here and make authentic decisions without my input, one, that makes you an independent person. Two, it allows you to formulate your own ideas. And three, that sets you up for success in the future, because so much of what we do, especially as kids with no frontal lobe, is just react, right? Like survival instinct, like I fell down, my knee is bleeding, therefore I'm crying. But if you can teach a kid to go, okay, so I'm scared, first of all. So what do I need to do to regulate the scared? Do I need to take deep breaths? Do I need to like find a parent? Like what do I need? What do I need to rectify the situation rather than just, losing it? And again, this is not about forgiveness, but really that's my goal, is just to teach emotionally regulated kiddos, because then they can make decisions. We always want to talk about kids. I want kids, okay? I'm sorry. The biological clock started ticking. I blame my cousin. She had her first kid, and now I cry every time I see a baby.
Oh, no, really?
I literally have physical pain when I see a baby. Like,
Oh my God. Oh my God.
want to steal the child so badly.
You're funny. I mean, not funny. I'm not, I'm not mocking you.
I'm
I'm just,
hilarious.
I'm just thinking about the time you really didn't want to leave the ice skating rink.
I was not an emotionally regulated
You were
child.
not. You were not emotionally regulated.
I was emotionally stunted, to put it mildly.
This isn't
You
how
want to
I'll just
the
tell
story?
it. Yeah,
Just tell
tell
the
it.
story. Okay. Just tell the story.
Tell the story. So anyway, Chelsea was about 9 years old, and I was babysitting her, and we went to the skating rink, and I worked for her mom. she she didn't want to. We went to pick up her sister who was at ice skating
Yeah,
practice,
my
and
sister
then
was skating.
yeah, Chelsea decided that she wanted to ice skate, but like that was not on the agenda. And I literally carried her kicking and screaming. I think she said I was kidnapping her. I think. Did you say something? I mean, all I
I
know,
have no idea, but it sounds like something I would do.
all I know is I thought my ass was going to get arrested. And I had only been working for your mom for a few months. And I was like, oh my God, this girl. But I love you. And,
Go to therapy, kids. It'll do wonders.
right.
Find a good
Anyway,
therapist. But no, but
um,
right, personal agency, right? I
yeah,
mean, I very easily could have continued to
yeah,
be the asleep, depressed, identity wrapped around being abused and
mm,
abandoned. That is actually, I mean, it's a very difficult place to be, but it is actually the easier place to be, because it doesn't
yeah,
require any inner work. It doesn't require any expansion. It doesn't require any shadow work. It is actually the easier place to be. But it's so possible. So I mean, my hope is, if anybody for whatever reason is watching this, contemplating the merits of therapy, please go. Like,
yeah,
please go to therapy, because it's not all is lost. Like my stepmom really is a lovely, inspiring lady, and she started her therapy journey at 40 some years old,
wow,
and always, yeah, after divorce, and always told me, she was like, man, Chelsea, the earlier you do this, the less work it's going to end up being on the back end. You don't want to go through 40 years of bullshit. You want to go through 15 years of bullshit. So
yeah,
I made it all the way to 26 years of bullshit, but said that's enough.
yeah. I was pretty much in counseling, like off and on from 25 to like just recently. I remember I used to, when I was married, I used to sneak to counseling. It's like,
Kids, if you're sneaking to counseling and you're married, you shouldn't probably be married. That's
and then
all.
I got a divorce. So anyway,
Go. Also, I
but
recommend getting cats for therapy. They're really good.
yes, therapy cats.
This cat loves being therapy cat because he will not move if I don't make him.
All right.
Therapy
Well,
cat,
I am sleepy. I think we might have to revisit part 2. I really like this forgiveness topic because it kind
Yeah.
of,
I'm telling you, it's got to be a series. You got to talk about it with everybody, and I hope people comment on it because it's really, really important aspect of human relationships that I think gets glossed over.
yeah. Same.
Edward, do you forgive me for trimming your nails and cutting your mats? Yeah. Thank you.
All right. Bye, everybody.